Hi guys, it's Machaela and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to the reasons why I have chosen to formula feed my children instead of breastfeeding them. So I want to start off by saying I don't believe that breast is best. I don't believe that formula is best. I believe that fed is best. And there are also more alternatives other than these to feeding your baby that I don't have a whole lot of background research in. I know you can use things like goat's milk and like breast milk alternatives. You can also, I believe, go to like certain food banks or hospitals and get pre-pumped breast milk as well. Again, I don't have all the information on that, so I will not be sharing that. But I'm going to start off with the reasons why I personally chose to formula feed, and then go into some of the pros and cons of formula feeding as well. I'm going to take it back to my firstborn. Being pregnant, I always kind of knew that I didn't want to only breastfeed. I've always kind of had it in my mind that I would partial formula feed, partial breastfeed, and a lot of it was just kind of the convenience of having others be able to help with my baby, and she wouldn't be just kind of stuck to me being the only one who could feed her, though I was going to wait the initial couple of months before I introduced formula just to give her some of that good stuff. Now, the first couple of days I always had breastfeed. I wanted my children to get that colostrum. And then after that, I just kind of switched into formula feeding. So with my firstborn, she was actually lactose intolerant. I was a new mom. I didn't know what to do. The doctors at the hospital didn't really teach me how to breastfeed. I really didn't have good education on it. And every time she would feed, she would just cry and fuss and have gassy problems. So we, within about 2 weeks, we decided to switch her to baby formula and then tried like alternating between breast and formula. Well, there was one day that my cousin, she was born about 2 weeks later, and we had gone to go meet her and see her for the first time, and that was the first day she was fully on formula. So and by the end of that day, we got home and we realized, you know what, she hasn't been fussy all day. She has been so good all day. So from about 2 weeks old on, I just formula fed. I allowed my body to wean itself, which wasn't too hard. I know that some people will say that it can be pretty hard, but if you do it right away, like I've noticed that really wasn't terrible. You just kind of had to get through a couple of days there while your body is just trying to figure out what it's doing. So after that, I realized that I really did love formula feeding. I realized how much my family members can help with the baby, how I was able to get a little bit more sleep at night, and also my baby was a lot more full and content between feedings, that she was able to go longer periods of time, and it was just like a whole shift in things. Just kind of felt just better. Things kind of started getting a little bit easier. I mean, obviously a first-time mom, I feel like, is really hard to try to learn everything, but once we got over that hump, and just kind of that learning curve with the formula, it just helped just make learning how to be a mom just a little bit easier, because it was one less thing I was stressing over. And plus, I don't feel like I was producing enough breast milk because I was so stressed out being a new mom trying to figure it all out. And then by the time we got to my second, while I was pregnant, my husband had an anoxic brain injury, and we were going through a lot of trials at the time. I mean, that's a whole separate story I can get into on its own, and I'd love to share it if you guys want to hear it. But with our current circumstances at the time, there was just so much happening. I was under so many stressors. I mean, praise the Lord for families. And by the way, my husband is completely healed. The Lord did a huge working on his life. He was able to make a full recovery from that injury, and that is a huge blessing. So I'm so glad that I get to go through life with my husband, when for a while there it looked like I was gonna have to be a single mom. So praise the Lord on that. But with those circumstances in mind, I was trying to figure out what is one thing I can reduce the stress of. I was 8 months pregnant when my husband went down, and After 2 months of that, he was in rehab, and I had a brand new baby that I had to take care of. On top of that, my husband came home from rehab. I was a neuro rehabilitation center he was at. He came home, and I had a 3-week-old and a husband that I had to help still to kind of take care of and continue on with the rehabilitation process. So when I was looking at things that I could easily eliminate stress from, formula was one thing I knew I could do it. I was familiar with it already. It was easy and it felt natural to me. So I chose to not breastfeed my second for the sole reason of it was one less thing I needed to stress over at the time, and I am so thankful that I did that. I mean, like I said, everything's fine. I had my baby right in the middle of my husband's recovery process. So when it came down to things that I didn't need to stress over, this was it. When it came to my third, again, it felt natural to formula feed, but I actually tried to breastfeed him and I was successful for about 4 months. However, I went through this phase where I kind of felt, and I don't really know how to describe it in words, but I felt like every time he latched, I felt an overwhelming sense of being overwhelmed, an overwhelming sense of sadness, and I felt drained. Like, I felt physically drained, I felt emotionally drained, like everything in me just felt drained. And it got to a point where I was dreading breastfeeding, because I actually thought I would, for a while there, I actually thought I could alternate between formula and breast milk, and every time you latch it, just, I couldn't, it was just an awful feeling. I didn't feel this bonding that I've heard other moms feel. I didn't feel this like sense of, oh, I love my child more. I didn't feel any of those things that a lot of other women I have heard describe breastfeeding. It felt the exact opposite. So at the time, this being my third child, I got to a point where I had to tell myself, okay, I can't put myself through this, and my kids don't need a mom that feels like this every time she's feeding her baby, or at all. They need a mom who's healthy, and formula feeding was the answer to feeling like that for me. I'm not saying that's the answer for everybody, I'm saying that's the answer to that for me. And now with my fourth baby, I feel kind of the same thing. I kind of played off of what I did with my third, not really feeling that bonding experience, that overwhelming sense of joy from breastfeeding that I heard other moms feel about, but also just playing off of that knowing I had that knowledge in me. I went into this knowing that yes, I could possibly breastfeed her, but I didn't want to because I know what I felt like before, and I didn't want to even start to put myself through that. Having another baby is a huge blessing, but it's a lot of change at the same time, and again, eliminating things that could stress me out. So really it's just, at this point, I know it, I know what I like, I know what works, and my husband and I are able to tag team the nighttime a little bit better, so I'm able to get adequate amount of sleep. I feel better in the mornings, I feel overall better, plus I know that I know exactly what my child is eating, how much they're eating, and how, you know, what I need to do to kind of, what I need to do in terms of the best way to feed them. One of my reasons why I chose to formula feed instead of breastfeeding. Again, I don't think breast is best. I don't think formula fed is best. I think that fed is best as long as your baby is growing and is healthy and is gaining weight and having dirty diapers. I mean, they're fine. I mean, you'll know what you need to do when you need to do it. Now I want to get into some pros and cons of formula feeding. A pro would be that you know exactly how much your child is getting, when they're getting it. They are able to go longer stretches between feedings because they are getting themselves filled up more. In my experience, my children have gained a lot of weight quicker in a healthy way, not in an obese kind of way, but in a healthy way. Other people can feed my baby. I'm able, if my husband and I want to go on a date night, I know that I can have a babysitter, and my baby will be well fed. If somebody else wants to hold my baby, I just hand them the bottle and I don't even have to worry about that. And I mean, yeah, you could argue, you know, pumping and doing all those things to give them a bottle works too. But I can also eat what I want. I don't have to pay super close attention to what I'm eating. Obviously, I want to eat healthier for my own health and so that I could be a better wife and a mother, but I don't have to pay so close attention to the point to where, oh no, is this gonna hurt my baby? What's gonna do? Or do I have to go on a special diet for my baby? So a lot of those kinds of things. The cons would be that it's super expensive. I know there was a formula shortage a couple of years ago, which if you don't have formula and you're a formula-fed baby, it's tragic. And then you always have to remember to bring your formula, because you know, when you're breastfeeding, it's like it's right there, okay, feed on demand. Formula, you have to make sure you have enough wherever you go. But there are, like, when it comes to price and stuff like that, because it gets expensive, there are things like WIC and like some government aids to help with that. So that's convenient, but if you don't have those things, you know, it can get crazy expensive. Again, if you are in those positions, visit your local church, visit your local pregnancy centers, visit your local food banks, WIC offices. I mean, they should be able to help you out in the price department. But I think that's it. Oh yeah, another con, trying to figure out which formula your baby needs. That can be a tricky one. I've got a couple of examples with me right now. The first one, it's the Enfamil milk-based powdered with iron, and this is supposed to quote-unquote mimic breast milk. Formula's different. It's not breast milk. I'm sorry. You can't mimic breast milk, but it is a good alternative. I've never used this one. This is just a couple cans I got when I brought my baby home from the hospital. We thought we'd try it out just because she was fine on it in the hospital, and then switching to another brand, which this is the Similac Sensitive, which all my kids have used this. I think before, for a while there, we used the Enfamil Gentle Ease, which is the purple can. This is the Similac Sensitive. It's all the same. Really just look at the ingredients, look at the label. Enfamil has one version, Similac has another. You can get like the parent's choice. Just make sure it says like Sensitive or NeuroPro or any of them on it. Just make sure that the label reads the same. So I use this for 3 out of 4 of my children. With my first, I actually used, it was called the Enfamil Pro Sobe, which is the soy-based formula. Because she was lactose intolerant, she loved the soy formula. However, with my second, she did not like the soy formula. She had a little bit of colic, so I went with the Sensitive. And I have since used that for all my kids. When it comes to trying to pick out a formula, I would say that if you're picking out formula for the first time, start with this. I mean, doctors will probably tell you to start with the milk base, the one that's closest to breast milk, but if you're not breastfeeding, there's probably a reason behind it. I would say start with the Similac Sensitive because it is still milk-based, I believe. But so this label says for fussiness and gas due to lactose sensitivity. Yeah, but it is a milk-based powder formula. And you can also get this in a liquid version. It's just a little bit more expensive. I would suggest starting with this. If this doesn't work, you could try this, but I would also recommend maybe trying the soy-based formula because that is lactose-free and it's not milk-based, it's soy-based. And then you can get into things like the Alimentum, which is for high food allergies. You can get different versions of all of these, so it can really be kind of tricky to figure out which formula to feed your child. These are just kind of what I've started off with, what I've loved. So, I think that's probably the hardest part right there, is trying to figure out exactly which base. And there are even, if your child's like super hypoallergenic, is that the word? Go to your pediatrician and they will write you a prescription for a certain kind of formula, and talk to your pediatrician. Not all of them are breast is best, though I will say that is heavily pushed, which again, I'm not against. But I feel like there are some pediatricians and doctors who could be a little bit more open to what the mom feels is best and give them information based on that. I haven't really had that experience with my pediatrician. I did, however, with my OB the first time around at their office, and the doctors in that system. However, the last 2 times around, they completely supported me. They taught me how to breastfeed to where I actually understood it. So I had 2 different doctors, but for my first 2, I didn't really learn. With my last 2, they made sure I knew, and they also made sure I had plenty of options for formula-based, and they didn't push me in either direction. So you gotta find those people too, and if you're pregnant, obviously find what works for you. Anyway, I think that's everything I have on my formula feeding information here. Again, this is my experience. I am not a doctor. So consult your doctor, consult your pediatrician before making any final decisions. This is just what led to my personal decision and my husband's. I mean, he obviously has a say, but to what led us to feel like this was what's right for our family. And it's not just right for me or my baby, but it's right for our whole family. I mean, the whole family is affected by this. Believe it or not, it's not just the mom and the baby, it's the entire family. So again, I think that's everything for this video. If you are new here, I do videos focusing on beauty and lifestyle, and my goal on this platform is to share my love for beauty as well as my love for Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And if you do want a more detailed story time going into my husband's injury, feel free to let me know. I would be happy to share it, and I can even have him come on here and share it with me. I'm sure he would love that. Anyway, I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.